everybody, welcome back. My name is Ashwood7 and today I would like to have a discussion. So a couple months ago I had a lament about never continuing on with my foreign language studies. When I was doing my bachelor's in my undergrad, I was required to take 5 classes of a foreign language, and after the 5th class was up, I never continued on with it, even though I greatly enjoyed learning Spanish and I always wanted to learn it fluently. However, I just never got around to actually pursuing it by myself or even finding anyone who would talk to me in Spanish to get me going or whatever. So one of my friends was like, hey, do you know about that website Duolingo? And I was like, what the heck is Duolingo? And she says, it's this website where you can learn any language for free, and all you need to save your progress is your email. So finally, about a couple weeks ago, I decided to download the Duolingo app. And then a week ago, more or less, I decided to start a German course rather than Spanish. And this is my reasoning for it. My reasoning is that I have the basic grasp of Spanish, and I just wanted to start another language from scratch and build up from there. And I always wanted to learn German, at least the basics, so that's where I started. And my gosh, is it crazy. I didn't realize how hard that German is as a language. Everyone says that English is hard to learn, and I agree when I look at some of the things that you have to learn. My hair's sticking up. And so when I took German, I was like, well, you know, it's in the same family more or less, and there's a lot of similar words, so maybe I will do good on it. And I've done well in Spanish. Boy, was I wrong. So I've been doing it about every day for a week now, and there's some things that I really enjoy and I really grasp, and then there's other things that I'm like, why is this even a thing? My biggest complaint about Duolingo is the speakers that are speaking the language to help you learn it. I find that in some areas I can hear what they're saying and then be able to type in what they say, and there's even some parts where you have to speak it back to them in order to get on to the next word or phrase. And sometimes they speak too fast, so I can't quite hear what the syllables are. And so when I say it back to them, or when I have to write it back, then they say, you are wrong. I'm like, well, you were speaking too fast. Slow down a little bit. So that really frustrates me. And another thing that annoys me is the fact that you have this little heart thing, and every time you mess up, a piece of the heart goes missing, and when you completely run out of your heart or your health, then you can't move on with the lesson until you go back and do practice runs of whatever lesson you want to pick out in order to get your health back. And that's kind of annoying, especially when it's hard to understand what the people are saying. I think that when you're learning a language for the first time, people who know the language fluently need to speak slowly and enunciate the words so that the language learner can understand what's being said. So this has given me to try and look at the big scheme of things. It makes me more appreciative of people who are trying to learn and are living their everyday life where I live, and they're learning the language of English, and people get so frustrated with other people learning it, and you're like, but it's hard. you don't realize how hard it is till you learn how to do it. And I realize that the older you get, the harder it is to learn it, because I am not the same person mentally that I was at age 20, and trying to get up to speed like I used to is not the same thing. So with all these little things, it just built up to a huge frustration, and I took a couple of days off. And Duolingo scolded me about it. So I started back up again yesterday, and I might do it again today. But I have caught on with a few words, and I can say a few things like Ich spreche English, I speak English, and Ich trinke Wasser, I drink water. I probably butchered that if any of you speak German, but oh well, I'm learning it, and I know a few words like Mädchen and Junge, Frau and Mann, just little things, and hopefully it'll build up to actually saying words in like complete sentences in German, because that's what I really want to do. But I understand learning vocabulary, because that's the big step into building onto the phrases. Anyway, so this isn't the type of vlog that I was planning on doing. I have all these ideas, but I just got really unmotivated, and it's hard to start once you stop, and I need to get into a motivation here. But I have a few ideas. One of the ideas is to talk about the origins of superstitions. Like, where does the fear of 13 come from? Why do we throw salt over our shoulder and everything? And I want to do one of those. And I also want to do urban legends, like the top 10 popular, or maybe even top 5 popular urban legends of the area, and maybe I'll even do a couple local ones around here. So those are 2 ideas that I have. If you have a preference or you like to hear something else, please let me know in the comments below. I am going to end this with another story reading. I got a lot of positive feedback about me reading a story in my last one, and I'm actually going to read another story from the Scary Stories treasury. Everyone kind of liked that, about me talking about my favorite books and reading a passage out of that, so maybe I'll do another brand new episode of another book that I really enjoyed and has impacted in my life. So if you want one of those, we can do one of those too in the future. But until then, I'm going to read another scary story. And this one is also from the 3rd book, I think. Yes. So this story is actually more sad to me than actually being scary, and it's called Maybe You Will Remember. And in case you don't remember who edited and wrote the books, it is Alvin Schwartz, and he did the 3 Scary Story movies. So let's continue on. Maybe You Will Remember. Mrs. Gibbs and her 16-year-old daughter, Rosemary, arrived in Paris on a hot morning in July. They had been on a vacation and now were returning home, but Mrs. Gibbs did not feel well, so they decided to rest in Paris for a few days before going on. The city was crowded with tourists. Still, they found a place to stay at a good hotel. They had a lovely room overlooking a park. It had yellow walls, a blue carpet, and white furniture. As soon as they unpacked, Mrs. Gibbs went to bed. She looked so pale that Rosemary asked to have the hotel's doctor examine her. Rosemary did not speak French, but fortunately the doctor spoke English. He took one look at Mrs. Gibbs and said, "Your mother is too sick to travel. Tomorrow I will move her to a hospital, but she needs a certain medicine. If you go to my home for it, it will save time." The doctor said he did not have a telephone right now. Instead, he would give Rosemary a note for his wife. The hotel manager put Rosemary in a taxi and, in French, told the driver how to find the doctor's house. "It will only take a little while," he told her, "and the taxi will bring you right back." But as the driver slowly drove up one street and down the other, it seemed to take forever. At one point, Rosemary was sure they had gone down the same street twice. It took almost as long for the doctor's wife to answer the door, then got the medicine ready. As Rosemary sat on a bench in the empty waiting room, she kept thinking, "Why can't you hurry? Please hurry." Then she heard a telephone ring somewhere in the house, but the doctor had told her he didn't have a telephone right now. What's going on? They drove back as slowly as they had come, crawling up one street and down the other. Rosemary sat in the back seat filled with dread, her mother's medicine clutched in her hand. Why was everything taking so long? She was sure the taxi driver was going to the wrong direction. "Are you going to the right hotel?" she asked. He didn't answer. She asked again, but he didn't reply again. When he stopped for a traffic light, she threw open the door and ran from the cab. She stopped a woman on the street. The woman did not speak English, but she knew someone who did. Rosemary was right. They had been driving in the wrong direction. When she finally got back to the hotel, it was early evening. She went up to the desk clerk who had given them the room. "I'm Rosemary Gibbs," she said. "My mother and I are in room 505. May I please have the key?" The clerk looked at her closely. "You must be mistaken," he said. "There is another guest in that room. Are you sure you are in the right hotel?" He turned to help someone else. She waited until he was finished. "You gave us that room yourself when we arrived this morning," she said. "How could you forget?" She stared at her as if she had lost her mind. "You must be mistaken," he said. "I have never seen you before. Are you sure you're in the right hotel?" She asked to see the registration card they had filled out when they arrived. "It's June, and I'm Rosemary Gibbs," she said. He looked into the file. "We've got no card for you. You must be in the wrong hotel." "The hotel doctor will know me," Rosemary replied. "He examined my mother when we arrived. He sent me for medicine she needs. I want to see him." The doctor came downstairs. "Here is the medicine for my mother," Rosemary said, holding it out to him. "Your wife gave it to me." "I've never seen you before," he said. "You must be in the wrong hotel." She asked for the hotel manager who had put her in the taxi. Surely he would remember her. "You must be in the wrong hotel," he said. "Let me give you a room where you can rest. Then maybe you will remember where you and your mother was staying." "I want to see my room," Rosemary said, raising her voice. "It's room 505. But it was nothing like the room she remembered. It had double bed, not twin beds. The furniture was black, not white. The carpet was green, not blue. There was someone else's clothing in the closet. The room she had known vanished, and so had her mother. "This is not the room," she said. "Where is my mother? What have you done with her?" "You are in the wrong hotel," the manager said patiently, as if he was speaking to a child. Rosemary asked to see the police. "My mother, our things, the room, they have all disappeared," she told them. "Are you sure you are in the right hotel?" they asked. She went to her embassy for help. "Are you sure it's the right hotel?" they asked. Rosemary thought that she was losing her mind. "Why don't you rest here for a while?" they said. "Then maybe you will remember." But Rosemary's problem was not her memory. It was what she did not know. See page 102. So let's flip over to 102. Where is it? Okay. So maybe you will remember how the story ends. What happened to Rosemary's mother? When the hotel doctor saw Mrs. Gibbs, he knew at once that she was about to die. She had a form of the plague, a dread disease that killed quickly and caused frightening epidemics. If the word got out that a woman died of the plague in the heart of Paris, there would be panic. People in the hotel and elsewhere would rush to escape. The doctor knew what the hotel's owners expected. He was to keep the case a secret, otherwise they would lose lots of money. To get Rosemary out the way, he sent her to the other side of Paris for some worthless medicine. As expected, Mrs. Gibbs died soon after she left. Her body was smuggled out of the hotel to a cemetery where it was buried. A team of workmen quickly repainted the room and replaced everything in it. The desk clerks were ordered to tell Rosemary that she was in the wrong hotel. When she insisted on seeing her room, it had become a different place, and of course, her mother had vanished. All those involved were warned that they would lose their jobs if they gave away the secret. To avoid panic in the city, the police and the newspapers agreed to say nothing of the death. No police reports were filed, no news stories appeared. It was as if Rosemary's mother in her room had never existed. So, I don't remember. Oh, here's some more. In another version of the story, Rosemary and her mother had separate rooms. Mrs. Gibbs died during the night while Rosemary was asleep. Her body was removed and her room was repainted and refurnished. When Rosemary couldn't find her mother the next morning, she was told that her mother was not with her when she checked in. After many months of searching, a friend, a relative, or the young woman herself finds someone who works in the hotel and for a bribe reveals what happened. This legend was the basis of a movie, So Long at the Fair, that appeared in 1950, and it also inspired 2 novels. And then it goes on. So, I don't remember ever reading that ending where you find out what happened to Rosemary's mother, but I always found it kind of, after reading what really happened and how they removed the body and everything, I found it sad that they care more about their reputation than the woman's mother, and I found it more sad than scary. So that's all for me. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and leave me a comment down below of what you think and what you'd like to see from me next time. What is your favorite scary story, and do you enjoy learning new things and new languages? And have you used Duolingo yourself? And I will see you next time.